This is Dave Specter, and we're very, very glad to have Warren Haynes here with Fret 12's Blues and Beyond. The last time I saw you, Warren, was in Chicago with the Dead, and you pretty much played the Firebird for the whole show, and I really loved the way it sounded, and I was wondering what inspired you to pick up the Firebird, and are you using it in other bands?
We had that particular Firebird built for that tour. Brian Farmer, my guitar tech, thought it would be a good idea if we had a Firebird built with mini humbuckers that would give it a little twangier, a little smaller sound, because obviously Les Paul is not the right instrument for that music. 335 worked pretty good. Strat worked pretty good. SG works quite well, but that Firebird seemed to work the best as far as fitting in with everybody else's sound. So he was right in that way. That guitar turned out to be the right guitar for the job.
What kind of amp rigs were you using on the Dead tour?
I was using a Paul Reed Smith Dallas head through a 212 cabinet, and then also my Cesar Diaz head, and just going back and forth between those two. I tried a few other things too. I tried a twin reverb, I tried a deluxe reverb, and they both sounded good, but what I settled with was the best combination.
And could you talk a little bit about the gear you're using, the Gov't Mule these days?
Yeah. The Gov't Mule gear is a lot of Les Pauls, a lot of Firebirds. Sometimes the Firebirds are tuned down a half step. I have this new 3 pickup Firebird with P90s that I recorded some of the new record with that sounds really great. 335s. I have my 12-string Les Paul that I've been using. Amp-wise, the Cesar Diaz and the Soldano, and I'm also starting to use a new Paul Reed Smith amp that they've built for me that really sounds amazing. And I'm going to be using that amp in the Allman Brothers as well.
You ever have any problems with buzz with the P90s?
Sometimes, last night, we were in a room where the P90s were too noisy, so I didn't play it.
Have you tried any of the hum canceling?
I have, and they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same sound, but it's a cool compromise. And I may end up having to get some of those the more and more I explore the P90 sound.
Cool. Just ask you, I know there was a question from the reader about your slide technique and you play on your ring finger, and he wanted to know, you could talk about why you use your ring finger rather than your pinky, and if you could recommend a couple slide players for people to check out who want to get more into slide.
I think choosing which finger to put the slide on has more to do with being able to play the chords while that slide is on your finger than anything else. Dickie Betts uses his second finger. Lowell George uses pinky. Dwayne Allman uses ring finger.
Yeah.
Listen to Ry Cooder and Dwayne Allman and Lowell George and Bonnie Raitt, and of course, obviously Elmore James and
Earl Hooker.
Earl Hooker, I love. I love Earl Hooker because he was the first person that I'm aware of that would mix slide and non-slide guitar in the same sentence.
Yeah.
And I love that. I found myself doing that, and I know Mick Taylor is really good at that. Yeah. And then when I went back and was listening to Earl Hooker one day, I was like, I guess that's where I got it from,
Yeah.
And also playing slide with a wah-wah, which is such a great sound, my slide technique, it's complicated, but maybe not really, but play with your fingers, use the fingers that you're not plucking the string with to mute out the unwanted noise, and also use your fingers behind the slide to mute out unwanted noise. That helps tremendously. Playing slide with a pick can only get you so far. I think you have to adopt some sort of right-hand finger technique.
Cool, right. A couple gear questions. This is from Julie James in Washington. I'm sure you have a lot of favorite guitars, and Julie wants to know what makes a guitar favorite to you.
Hey, Julie. To me, if you pick up a guitar and it feels good and sounds good instantly, that's what makes a guitar a favorite to me. It doesn't have to be any certain type of guitar. It can be a $200 guitar. It can be, $10,000 guitar. It doesn't matter. If it feels good and sounds good when you pick it up, then it usually inspires you to come up with some music, and that's really what the instrument is for, to inspire the musician to do something with it. A lot of times getting outside of your comfort zone and picking up a guitar that you're not familiar with will have the same sort of impact.
This one's from Sean Clark in New Jersey. You're on the road so much, playing so many shows each year. Do you ever feel like you hit the wall and have nights where you're just like reaching for it and it's not there?
Hey, Sean, that's a good question. I think even people that don't travel nearly to the extent that I do have those kind of nights. The key is to try and make it where your bad nights are still good, because everybody has bad nights. I think whoever the greatest guitar player is in the world walks off stage sometimes thinking, wow, I had a terrible night, but those of us in the audience probably didn't notice it.
This is from Mitchell Graham in South Haven, Michigan, not too far from here. Warren, I'm 13 and I just saw you in concert in Grand Rapids. I thought it was amazing. I'd like to know how long you've been playing guitar, if you took lessons, and if you could give me some practicing tips.
Mitchell? What's his name?
Yeah.
Hey, Mitchell. I started playing guitar when I was 12. I started singing when I was about 7. My oldest brother got an acoustic guitar when I was 11, and I started playing it. And then for my 12th birthday, I got an electric guitar. I did take a few lessons from a blues guitar player named Andy Hunter, who was in my hometown. But Andy gave me the advice that I should teach myself, which is what he did. And so after a few lessons, I stopped taking lessons and just concentrated on reading and practicing as much as possible. I would just read interviews and books on music theory and whatever I could get my hands on, but mostly playing as much as possible. There's no substitute for playing. And playing with a band, I think, is really more valuable exponentially than playing by yourself. Learning how to play with a band is something you only discover by playing with a band.
This one's from Sean Clark in New Jersey. You're on the road so much, playing so many shows each year. Do you ever feel like you hit the wall and have nights where you're just like reaching for it and it's not there?
Hey, Sean, that's a good question. I think even people that don't travel nearly to the extent that I do have those kind of nights. The key is to try and make it where your bad nights are still good, because everybody has bad nights. I think whoever the greatest guitar player is in the world walks off stage sometimes thinking, wow, I had a terrible night, but those of us in the audience probably didn't notice it.
From Spencer Ross Chatham in Alabama. He'd like to know who, if any one person, was Towering Fool written about. And if you could talk about the inspiration for the song.
Spencer.
Yeah.
Hey, Spencer, that's a great question. Towering Fool is one of those songs that we don't play very often. A lot of my songs, including that one, have fictitious characters, and maybe they're based on real people, usually a combination of more than one person. And the reason they're fictitious is because I would never dream of exposing who they're actually about. Occasionally it's obvious, and in the case of Towering Fool, probably not. That song originated, this is a bizarre story, it originated with Matt Apps telling me he had a dream that he wrote a song called Towering Fool. And when he woke up, that's all he remembered was the title. And I said, well, can I write it? And he said, sure. And so Matt is co-writer on that song because he dreamed the title. But I sat down and wrote this song, and it's based on real people and my life. But, the names have changed to protect the innocent.
And this is from Zach Adley Rumford in Maine. And Zach wants to know, to get ready for a show, do you have special practice techniques? How long do you practice?
Hey, Zach, the answer to your practice question is I don't do a lot of practice in the sense of regimented running scales and stuff like that, because I play all the time. We play a 3-hour show. We sound check in the afternoon. The sound check is a good warm up. It's a good way of limbering up and getting ready. Otherwise, I just always have an acoustic guitar close by that if I feel like playing, I'll play a little bit. But very seldom do I sit down and just go through techniques and stuff. But I think performing is more valuable than practicing. So the more you can perform, the more you keep yourself sharp.
This is from Alan Byers in Maryland. He wants to know, of the material you have written, what song are you most proud of? If you were to look back and could you choose one?
It's really hard to choose one song. That's a really hard question. I don't even know where to start. I mean, there's an instrumental called "Kind of Bird" that Dickie Betts and myself wrote that is really a beautiful piece. But from a lyrical standpoint, there are different ones on a different day.
In terms of keeping yourself in shape physically and mentally on the road, this is from Chris in Boulder. How do you keep yourself in shape physically and mentally when you're on the road?
Chris in Boulder, good question. There's not a lot of time other than the work that you have to do on the road, so you have to kind of get into some sort of routine, make sure that you get plenty of sleep and some decent food. Being on the road is draining. It takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. Some people play golf. I'm not a big golfer, but for me, it's just the music seems to take up the entire day between sound check and figuring out the rehearsal and figuring out the set list, and then showtime. You just get up into these routines and you feel like that's what you're doing day after day. But I think it's just mostly important to get plenty of rest, and as cliche as that may sound.
Where's this question from Eric Chaikin in North Carolina? He wants to know, in terms of, is there anything that you just can't get enough of, that your records that you're playing over and over again? If so, what are they?
Eric, that's a good question. I listen to so much old music. It's hard for me to discover new music that rivals Otis Redding and James Brown and Miles Davis and Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and B.B. King and Albert King. I find myself listening to a lot of what I call timeless music. Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin and Bob Dylan and Van Morrison and stuff like that. There's some new bands, that I dig a lot. Ray LaMontagne as a solo artist, I really like a whole lot. I like some of what the Black Keys are doing. But it's hard to discover music that rivals the greatest music of all times, which is always there. There's always the past to go visit, because none of us can discover all of it. So, if you listen to Wes Montgomery or Charlie Christian or something like that, you could listen to that stuff for years and still not really understand where it comes from.